Somewhere in a hospital, an old man's heart stops beating. The monitors flatten. The doctors step back. By every definition we have, he is gone. But there was a machine still recording his brain, and what it captured in the 30 seconds around his death was something no scientist was ever supposed to see. For just a moment, his dying brain did exactly what your brain does when you remember your whole life, and nobody had planned to record it. This actually happened, and it points to a possibility that is hard to even say out loud, that the moment you die might not be a fade to black at all. It might be the most vivid thing that ever happens to you. Let's start with the body, because the timeline matters. The instant your heart stops, your blood stops moving. Your brain, which burns through roughly 1/5 of all the oxygen in your body, suddenly stops receiving any. You would expect it to shut off immediately, like a bulb when the power is cut. It doesn't. For the first few seconds, your neurons keep firing on the oxygen already inside them. You are still you. Your last thought is still unfolding. Then, around 10 seconds in, the part of your brain responsible for conscious awareness begins to go quiet. From the outside, this is the moment you appear to lose consciousness. Your eyes stop seeing. Your ears stop hearing. To the people standing over you, you are already gone. But the inside tells a different story. And in the year 2022, we got our first accidental glimpse of it. An 87-year-old patient was in the hospital after a fall. Doctors had connected him to an EEG machine, a device that records the electrical activity of the brain, because they were trying to detect seizures. While he was hooked up to that machine, he had a heart attack and died, which meant that, completely by accident, scientists had recorded the continuous brain activity of a human being across the exact moment of death, something that had almost never happened before. A neurosurgeon named Ajmal Zemmar led the team that studied the recording, and what they found in the 30 seconds before and after the heart stopped was a surge of brainwaves called gamma oscillations. Gamma waves are not random noise. They are the signature your brain produces during your highest level activities: concentration, dreaming, and most striking of all, memory retrieval. The exact pattern your brain makes when you are pulling up a memory and reliving it. In other words, in the seconds around death, this man's brain produced the precise rhythm it would produce if he were remembering his life. Zemmar put the implication into plain words. The brain, he suggested, may be playing back a final recall of important moments, the way people who come close to death so often describe. And this was not the first clue. Years earlier, a neuroscientist named Ajmal Zemmar at the University of Michigan had been studying dying animals and noticed the same thing. When the oxygen was cut off, the brain did not simply wind down. It surged. In the year 2023, her team studied 4 dying human patients who were being removed from life support, and in 2 of them, the same explosion of organized gamma activity erupted across the brain, concentrated in a region linked to consciousness and out-of-body experiences. She described the surge in blunt terms. It was, she said, crazy high. So now we have a strange and consistent picture. Across species, across separate labs, the dying brain does not quietly switch off. In its final moments, it lights up. This is where the science collides with something people have been reporting for as long as we have records: the near-death experience. For decades, men and women who were brought back from clinical death have described the same handful of things: a feeling of floating above their own body, a deep and total peace, a light, and the life review. You have heard the phrase, "Your life flashes before your eyes." Most people assume that means the highlight reel, the wedding, the graduation, the big achievements. But the people who have actually lived through it say that is not how it works at all. It is not the big moments. It is the small ones. A particular afternoon as a child. The feeling of a doorway in a house you forgot you ever lived in. Ordinary seconds you would have sworn your brain never bothered to keep, which raises a question neuroscience still cannot answer. Are all of your memories still in there? Every single one? And does the dying brain, in its final electrical surge, somehow open the entire archive at once? We do not know. But the timeline gives that surge a window to happen in, because here is the part most people get wrong about death. It is not a single instant. Your brain cells can survive without oxygen for roughly 4 to 6 minutes before the damage becomes permanent. That means after your heart stops, there is a window, several minutes long, where the machinery of your mind is still intact, still chemically alive. Just waiting. Waiting for oxygen that might come if someone starts CPR, or waiting for the end if no one does. And this is exactly why a man named Sam Parnia, a resuscitation specialist at New York University, has spent more than 2 decades studying that window. His AWARE studies examined hundreds of cardiac arrest patients across dozens of hospitals, people who were, by clinical definition, dead before being brought back. What his team found is difficult to dismiss. Around 2 in 5 survivors reported some form of awareness during the time they had no heartbeat. About 1 in 5 described a structured, lucid experience, clear thoughts, real memories, a sense of calm observation. And a small number reported full visual and auditory awareness, claiming to have seen and heard things happening around their own lifeless body, details that, in some cases, checked out. Parnia argues that this points to something we have not begun to understand, that human consciousness does not necessarily stop the second the heart does, that it may persist faintly into that 4 to 6 minute window, in a state none of us are equipped to imagine. And inside those accounts, one detail repeats more than almost any other. The people who come back so often say they were not alone. They describe a deceased relative waiting for them, a grandmother, a father, someone who seemed to be there for the specific purpose of meeting them. Some say they were told it was not their time and felt themselves pulled back. Whether this is the brain building one last comforting story, or something we have no science for at all, no one can yet say. But the people who lived it almost never describe terror. They describe being expected. They describe being welcomed. They describe a peace so complete it ruined them for ordinary fear. Now, the careful scientist in the room will say, and they are right to, that a surge of gamma waves is not the same thing as proof of a conscious experience. A dying brain firing in familiar patterns might be producing a final, vivid hallucination, the last performance of an organ running out of fuel. That is a completely fair reading of the data. We cannot climb inside a dying mind and ask it what it sees. But here is what we can say for certain, because the instruments say it. The dying brain is not passive. It does not fade. In the moments after the heart stops, it becomes intensely, measurably active, in exactly the regions tied to awareness and to memory. Whatever that activity feels like from the inside, something is happening in there. The lights do not just go out. For a moment, they blaze, and almost everyone who comes back from that edge returns changed in the same way. They do not come back craving more money, more status, more things. They come back wanting more time with the people they love, in the ordinary moments that never seem to matter, because it turns out those ordinary moments are exactly what the dying brain reaches for. Not the achievements, not the milestones. A regular afternoon, a face across a kitchen table, the small, unremarkable seconds you did not think anyone was keeping, but your brain was keeping them, all of them. And in your final minutes, when the heart goes quiet and the machinery is still alive in the dark, it may do the one thing it spent your whole life preparing for. It may play them back. So here is the thought to sit with. You are right now recording. Every plain Tuesday, every drive home, every conversation you barely noticed having is being written down somewhere inside you. You will not get to choose which ones return at the end. The brain seems to choose for you, and it does not choose the way you would expect. Which means the moments you are living through right now, the ones that feel too small to count, the ones you are half paying attention to while you think about something else, those might be the very moments that come back for you in the dark, in the last few minutes, when there is nothing left to do but watch. So, watch them now. Look up from whatever is pulling at your attention and actually be where you are. Because the people who have stood at that edge and come back are all trying to tell us the same thing. The ordinary was the treasure the entire time. We just could not see it because we were too busy waiting for our real life to begin. It already began. It has been playing the whole time. And someday your brain is going to show it to you one last time in full.